Eric, yeah. So if you want Eric, I will give you Eric. And please join me to welcome the Executive Chairman of Google, Mr. Eric Schmidt. Welcome, Eric. Hello, Eric. We're honored to have you here. And please let me introduce our moderator, Ms. Tian Wei from CCTV. Welcome, Tian Wei.
Good to see you. Thank you very much. Eric, it's good to see you.
Okay, Tian Wei, Eric is all yours.
Thank you very much, Jack. Please, Eric.
Okay, good, thank you.
Eric 上场的时候掌声雷动啊，我们再给他热烈掌声好吗？谢谢。
I think that there's a lot of Google in this room. Google, 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 the Google friends.
There is, and there are a lot of fans of Google as well.
So thank you.
大家呢可以有这个耳机的同传，如果需要听中文的好朋友，可以用耳机同传来听哈。Well, it's great pleasure to have you here because you've been having very busy days recently. According to some report, you traveled to a very exotic country, DPRK. Was it cold there?
It was so cold, it's hard to describe how cold it was in North Korea. And I'm not talking about the politics and the government, I'm talking about the temperature.
Don't read between lines.
and I'll tell you that they don't have enough money for enough fuel, so they don't heat their buildings. And so we would wear our coats outside and inside.
All right, but everything there is inexpensive. I heard from friends traveling there. If you got a whole train of gifts you can carry back home from DPRK, what would you bring with you to your friends in the Google?
They have, as you can imagine, they have a lot of art, and they have vases and pictures of tigers and amazing, amazing talents. Everything's done by hand, of course, because it's not a very mechanized society.
Right. Well, but our focus today is not necessarily on Northeast Asian politics, but rather on innovation and technology. And that is why many of our friends here really want to know what you have done and what you have said that made Google has become such a great company. Very small one 10 years ago. Today, as we all know, it has already become a multinational giant. So what do you consider as some of the most instrumental actions and words you used and took over the past 10 years that made your company become what it is today?
You know, the most important thing we focused on was hiring very, very smart programmers. Literally the best programmers that we could find. And I think this is a conference about programming and programmers. And we studied the Chinese market, and we know that China has a very, very large number of tremendously talented scientists and programmers. So I would say that the single most important thing to do is to build a company that attracts the top programmers who want to solve a big problem. And I would also say that we started with a goal of having all of the world's information sorted out, which is a big goal. It's not a little goal. And that really big goal allowed us to recruit people who wanted to solve a big problem, not a little problem. So I would encourage each of you to have a goal that's a very big one. Don't just settle for the China market, the world market. Don't just settle for Beijing, settle for all of China. Make sure you run everywhere. Make sure you serve everyone.
Think big.
Think big. And the reason you think big is, one, you might be right, but also because your people believe you, and then they do amazing things.
All right. But you talk about big. Before becoming big, there might be a lot of big obstacles and challenges. What do you consider as some of the biggest ones now you look back past 10 years?
Well, we were fortunate that we had better technology than our competitors. But the core challenges that we always had were problems of how to move as fast as we could. In every market, there's an incumbent and there's a challenger. We were the challenger. So as a challenger, you just have to move faster and you have to be more focused. So you have to be better and you can't lie about it. It actually has to be better and you need to be truthful to yourself. And that's how you achieve greatness, in my view.
The incumbent and the challenger, do you think Google can still are the challenger, or?
Well, Google is now a very large company.
Right.
But if you look at the history of technology that I'm used to, the incumbents always fall off. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, people thought that Microsoft was going to dominate the entire world forever. And today, it's not Microsoft, it's other companies, right? That's very important. Now, that could happen to Google or Amazon or Apple or Facebook. But each of those four who tend to play the global role now have aggressive leaders, aggressive strategies. We'll see. But as the company gets larger, it's harder and harder to be that challenger and keep that energy. We've tried, and I hope we are successful.
What do you think are the elements to be addressed in order to continue to be that challenger, even though you're already becoming big?
A lot of it has to do with a hunger for winning. It's very, very easy to sit in your nice office and say, oh, we did really well. And just at that point in high technology, a small startup has been founded that's going to go directly against you. So part of the leadership skill is to always, always understand that there's another company right there competing with you. Now, in China, it's so competitive and it's such an entrepreneurial spirit that all of you understand this. But as your companies get very big and very successful, you will face this too.
Can the next challenger sometimes, maybe in the future, come from China?
Oh, absolutely. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. The simplest answer is that all technology solutions start with a local market of some kind. At Google, we started at Stanford. Literally, we started to solve the Stanford problem. And it solved the US problem, and then it solved the global problem, and then it solved other problems. So it's absolutely possible that global companies can come from China, and there's a couple reasons. One is you have a large domestic market. Two, you have a lot of very smart graduates from universities coming. And three, you have a very strong entrepreneurial spirit. There are some other countries that it might come from too. Israel, entrepreneurial spirit, smaller of course, very good with technology. What about Europe? What about Brazil? Right, so forth. So there are many reasons. Eventually India, as it gets its act together, etc.
But before some Chinese ones can become the challengers, they have to do really well in their home market,
yes,
first of all. And therefore, people would like to, I'm sure many of our friends here, to compare a bit about what is going on in other markets for innovation and what is going on here in China's home market for innovation. Looking from your angle, differences, similarities.
Well, what's interesting to me is people always say, oh, the Chinese market must be very different. I will tell you that the only differences are regulatory and language between.
That's a lot of differences already.
Not that many. People are pretty much the same everywhere. Did you know that people in China like art and music at the same level as Americans and Europeans and Indians and Africans?
And we would only probably say, if not even more.
You see, my point is that taste, humans are the same everywhere. People want creativity, they want entertainment, they want information, they want to have fun, they want to solve their problems, they want to make money, they want better education, especially for their children. That's true everywhere. So what are the differences? There are cultural differences, there are language differences, and there are regulatory differences.
Which one tend to be playing a bigger role now?
Well, in China, of course, there are regulatory differences. But I am always a believer that governments will become, the governments that have very distinctly different policies because of the internet, will become more similar. That the global standard of interconnectedness tends to make governments become more similar. When I was in North Korea, it's been widely reported, and I'll say again, I believe that North Korea cannot achieve its economic objectives, which are very important, without opening up to the internet. There are no examples of successful growth countries right now that have refused the internet. China, for example, growing very well, has embraced the internet in an important way. In fact, I think there are more internet users in China than anywhere else, so I'm happy to be here.
And we're happy to have you. Yesterday, I was looking at some of the footages my colleague brought back to our office back in CCTV. Obviously, after that DPRK trip, you were buried by microphones from everywhere.
Well, the Chinese press are very aggressive.
Well, now you're buried probably by the enthusiasms,
That's right,
by the people sitting here who wants to have their own startups, who want to have their own companies, and who one day want to be the challengers. What do you think can be some of the most major steps for startups?
Well, let's start with some facts about China. The Chinese internet reaches maybe half of Chinese people, so you're only halfway to where you need to be. So there'll be growth there. The second is that Android, the Google platform, has 90% market share of the mobile smartphone market here in China. That's amazing. We're very proud of that. So the first thing I would do if I were a developer in China is I would make sure that I had a solution for mobile Android that worked well. Because that's numerically where everybody is, the most important thing. Because if you can solve a problem that affects 1 million people or 10 million people or 100 million people, you can make money. You can. So in America, there's always this debate as, can Facebook make money? Can Twitter make money? Of course they can, because they have large audiences. At Google, in every case where we had a large audience, we could make money from it. We figured out a way.
But you know, here, patience is something in short supply.
That's okay. The internet is about scale and speed. And the Chinese entrepreneurial spirit and the adoption. I've been coming to China for 15 years. The changes that I have seen are so dramatic that you all have forgotten how dramatic it was.
How dramatic is it, according to your memories?
Well, let's go back to the credit card systems, the debit systems, the information systems, the adoption of mobile telephones, on and on and on. I remember each of the stages in the country. And I think it's changed China forever and in a very good way.
And now we're in a new age. And there are certain things that many of our friends sitting here should know. For example, about the recent innovation trend, about some of the technology options they can have when they're doing their own startups, when they're doing their own innovations. Some of the important ones from you.
Well, I think the most important decision is to have a mobile strategy. So here it would be Android first and iPhone second, just by numerically. And I would probably not do the others, but that's okay. You have to have a server strategy. So you have to have powerful servers that do computational analytics, as they're called, data analytics, that speak to applications on a mobile phone. So now let's think about the problems that a citizen of China has. They have banking problems, they can't find things, the traffic is tough, they want to have a new service. Each of these is a problem that one of you could solve. So in the United States, what we've seen is the internet solves every problem in a new way. You need to borrow somebody's house. There's a new startup to do that. Right? You need to find a friend. There's a new startup to do that. Every problem that humans have, somebody has a startup for. I believe the same is possible here in China. Every single problem a Chinese citizen should have, one of you should be working on a solution. How to vote, how to sort of pay taxes, how to sort of talk, how to sort of get a job, how to get listings, how to get real estate, how to spend money, how to figure out your bank account. how to talk to your boss, how to do online education, how to teach your children, medical care, Wikipedia and its information sources. Every one of those is an opportunity for a startup. How to use a credit card, how to use a debit card, how to keep the accounting of that, how to repair my computers, on and on and on and on.
It is a very long list, particularly when you have a country in great transition.
Yes.
Well, we've been talking about some of the trends and also tips that our friends should be aware of. One thing is very important. They would argue environment here is very different from the environment that encouraged innovation and innovators in Silicon Valley, for example.
I hear that, but I don't agree.
Why not?
Because if you, again, I'm your guest. What is the stories in America? They're all about Chinese entrepreneurs.
Obviously, we love each other.
Right? The story of China right now is the entrepreneurial spirit of China, which I understand has been a spirit that has been true for generations, 1,000 years. The notion of Chinese entrepreneurship is deeply embedded in the culture of China, which is a 5,000-year-old culture. And so what I would suggest is that as an entrepreneur, which I think is many of you, you need to move very quickly because you have a competitor, and you need to build a very smart team, and you need to make sure you treat them well, encourage them to think. One of the things that I've seen is that people are going from an old static model, that is a do what I'm told model, to a do what I want model. And you need, with your developers, certainly with your engineers, you need to go back and you need to say, what problem do you want to solve? And I'll help you solve it. One of the secrets at Google was we allow people to spend 20% of their time on whatever they would like to. Now, can you imagine doing that in China?
20% of time, what do you like to do? Me,
I'm a pilot. I visited North Korea. You know, I do lots of interesting things. And the company says, sure, as long as it's 20% of the time. The 80% of the time, I have a real job. But that 20% of time helps me make a better decision for the 80%.
I really have to confess here, Eric, because over the past few days, I was working with some of your colleagues here in China on this quote-unquote mysterious project, namely to talk to you, and I find them very, very energetic and extremely passionate. Probably that 20% time is really good advice.
And by the way, do you think that people work better when you tell them what to do, or you ask them what they want to do?
大家觉得呢?
I mean, come on. It's not that complicated.
Not complicated at all.
It's much more fun to work on what you want to work on, and you're going to work harder. And did you know that that's true of programmers as well?
And I really love your problem-solving strategy, or rather theory, because here in China, the Chinese Twitter is really active.
Yeah.
And it becomes, at the very beginning, a place for exchange of information. But later, it becomes a ground for complaints. Amazing. And that's why people are calling on for positive energy.
Absolutely. It's one of the great things about the internet is people have a lot to say. And they will say it.
They will say it.
And your job is to read it and understand it and figure out how to solve their problem.
So not only to complain about the problems, but pick up those problems, according to Eric, and solve them.
And the great entrepreneurs listen to the problem and they come up with a new solution. I will tell you that over and over again at Google, I would say, oh, there's nothing new there. And an engineer or Larry or Sergey would say, no, there's a new way to solve this problem. In our case, we have invented a new way to drive cars, which is to have the computer drive the car, which is terrifying, by the way. We did something called Google Glass, where we can see what you see in your eyes. We've done many, many projects which challenge assumptions.
What are some of the exotic ideas you're working on right now? Can be shared?
I think the biggest idea will be to go to deeper understanding of what people know and want. We today, as a company, can answer questions which are search questions. So you type in a search query and we give you an answer. But eventually, we'll be able to anticipate some of the things that you would like to know and suggest them to you. So here I am, I'm in Beijing, I've been here many times. These are the things I should know, these are the things that I should care about.
But what about...
We can move from answering the question to thinking about the problem.
In that process, of course, the issue of privacy is being involved.
Of course.
How do you see that debate?
It's going to be a huge issue, and ultimately people will decide how much they want to give us. Google has taken the position, which I strongly support, that the information, you decide whether you give us the information. If you give us the information, we need to keep it secure, but it's also okay if you decide you don't want to give us that information. We don't want the information unless you choose to give it to us. And I think that's how privacy will be resolved.
But do people have many options at all?
Sure. Well, we have a competitor. We have a number of competitors here in China.
That's very interesting. And let's go a little bit further about the dialogue on innovation. There are quite a number of people here saying, well, in China, money is not that hard to come by. So mainly you got capital to run things. But it is really about the ideas, and the ideas that can not only translate into the Chinese culture, but also can translate into the global culture that really make people so scratch their head. When Chinese companies are trying to become global, even when it comes to internet and innovation companies, what do you think might be some of the suggestions you have? On the other hand, what do you think might be the biggest challenges you might have from China? Probably that's also the advice.
I would encourage people not to pursue what they're doing because of money, but rather because of the power of ideas. If your focus is on buying success, you can buy success for a while. Let's say you're wealthy, you can spend a lot of money, you can tell people you're famous. But to really be successful, you have to earn it. And you have to earn it customer by customer. You can't force them, they have to love you. And they have to love you because your product is phenomenal. So to me, the most exciting thing in life is a new idea that scales, that a lot of people care about. And I'm sure that there are many such ideas here in the room. Again, how do I pay for things? How do I live on the mobile world? How do I find things? How do I find my friends? How do I learn new things? How do I teach new ideas? These are ideas which are not just for China, they're for the world. So if you could invent such an idea, you would be far more important and far more famous than whatever money you'll make.
Ideas really matter.
And you'll make a lot of money because people will pay for great ideas. And furthermore, if you make the right idea, people will come to you. What is amazing to me about Google is that smart people keep wanting to come because they see us as a place where innovation occurs. I'm very proud of that at our scale.
And we also see a lot of Chinese who are studying overseas, working overseas, are coming back to this country.
Yes, the Chinese miracle is something that the whole world should be proud of. The growth rate that China has achieved over the last 30 years has never been achieved before.
You know, I Googled you before I met you.
Of course.
And one of the things that really impressed me is how you, as a very instrumental person of the growth of the company, can make big decisions for your own professional life. And now you are the executive chairman of Google, different from some of your previous roles of the company. How do you plan your next career path? What are the things you think you have to push inside the company to make it even greater company?
On a personal basis, I don't have a plan. I've decided that the world is so interesting that I want to listen and learn and participate in this discussion. I'm very, very interested right now in promoting the internet to solve every problem in the world. If you have a problem, the internet can solve it. That's my view. Now, maybe that's a little extreme, but that's my religion, if you will. And I find that if you start from that premise, you get everybody's attention, and then you have a real conversation.
I know now. Your religion is internet.
Is the internet.
Thank you, Eric.
Okay, thank you.
We have a lot of people here who want to share not only their issues and questions, but also their thoughts with you about innovation and even about Google.
Sure.
So we have some of our developers, friends, who are here to come up to the stage and ask your solemn question to Eric, and also share your views with our audience here. 我们现在有请我们的一些好朋友也到台上来，提出他们的有关 Google、有关中国因特网发展的一些问题。有请我们的几位好朋友上台来，有请大家。大家请坐吧，谢谢所有。排名不分前后左右中间啊，所以呢，我们请各位啊，知道都是这一次活动的好朋友，同时呢，也是一直在想中国因特网下面一步怎么来发展。Now we have a golden opportunity with Eric Schmidt sitting here with us. Ask your question. Should we have your questions one by one? If you can put it into English. Okay.
Eric, so actually I have two questions packed into one.
No, that's okay.
First one is that we're all talking about innovation today. Recently I just read a book called Innovator's Dilemma.
Yes.
So for Google, it's already a company of 10 years IPO. How do you make sure you can still innovate in the upcoming 5 years, 10 years, still be a great company? Are we talking about you have some kind of a innovation day off, something like that, to have 20% of the time? This is like some kind of a bottom-up innovation. So do you think it's really effective compared to our style? Maybe a very strong CEO or visionary to have top-down innovation. So which is, okay.
The best answer is both top-down and bottoms-up, which makes no sense, but let me explain. If you look, let's look at my friend Steve Jobs, who's now dead, and we miss him terribly. Brilliant, brilliant product visionary as CEO. My friend Larry Page, running Google now, brilliant product visionary. That product visionary running the business, who has a very deep feel for the products of the company. And then you have ideas bottling up. So this idea here, this idea here, this idea here, and then there's a process of debate. You cannot have uninformed leadership and informed engineers. You have to, in a product company, the leadership has to love the products. If you build cars, you have to love cars. If you build trucks, you have to love trucks. If you build software, you need to love software. Look at Facebook, run by Mark, brilliant product man, right? Look at Amazon, Jeff Bezos, brilliant product marketing person. Over and over again, you see the need for top-down and bottom-up. It would be nice if it were so simple as you could be top-down and you're always right and just tell everyone what to do and they always do it, right? Yeah, but that's not how it really worked. And by the way, it's also not how it worked at Apple, because I was on the board.
Are you satisfied with that answer?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Shall we have the next one?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So you are the conductor here. It seems like you point to people and then they automatically talk. Okay, this gentleman.
Firstly, welcome to China. So I hope your trip to DPRK can help us speed up the network access to Google in China, maybe. I'm coming from Changba, which is the most popular application in China.
Yes.
But before joining Changba, I also have my own startup company. But my question is, how can small companies' application get into people's attention in this huge application market? Because as we know currently, the Apple application is full of a lot of applications, and most of them cannot catch anybody's attention.
Yeah.
So do you have any plan or roadmap to make this search of the application success, just like you did Yahoo? Thank you.
You need something.
Yes.
You need something that excites people. There has to be something that your product does that's better than your competitors. So that's the first thing.
Yes.
The second thing is we do everything by word of mouth. So friends of friends of friends. So if we have a new idea, we give it to a small number of trusted people, and if they like it and they say, this is amazing, we ask them to tell their friends. And we find that friends recommend to other friends. And we start at universities and places like that. So that's a second path. The third one is to get something exciting that you did, right, because of this new product. And then have the media help you. So your product solved a problem. So there's a problem in this city. Your problem solved that. And the media starts to report it, and everyone hears about it. And that's very cheap advertising. It doesn't cost anything.
Yes.
So those three are much better than spending lots of money to advertise a product that's not as good as the competitors. So it starts with a great product and word of mouth.
Yeah, I agree with that. But one more question is about if you're talking about the product for general purpose, but what if the product is just for a few people and don't know by a lot of people? So this spreading will be stopped.
It works the same way with enterprise customers. So the enterprise is a specialized market. Companies, the companies have people who evaluate the choices. They ask the other companies what they use.
Okay.
Again, it's the same principle, different market. But it would be nice if you could just take a product that was okay, spend lots of money, and make everybody use it.
Yes, just change the...
But that's not how it works. It works because people say to you, you say to her, did you know about this? And she goes, no. And she tries it, and then she says to him, did you know about it? It's word of mouth because of something unique. Faster, cheaper, quicker, more scalable, something like that.
What do you want to tell us now?
They do.
All right. Okay. So, Mr. Conductor, who is going to ask the next question?
I'll be the last one.
All right.
Hi, I'm from USWeb. I'm Yu Fu. 我想呢，在座的都是这个 Android 的受益者，所以我的问题呢，想谈论一下这个 Android。因为比如像 UCWeb 是一个这个 mobile 的 browser， 现在我们每个月在 Android 上呢，活跃用户已经超过了1个亿。对，不光是在这个中国，也还有在这个亚洲的其他的地区，包括一些。
您大点声说好吗？我听不是很，因为有反。
OK，
反
就是这个，我想谈论一下这 Android， 因为我们所有人都是 Android 的这个 ecosystem 的这个会者。像 UCWeb 的话呢，在亚洲的每个月的 Android 的活跃用户已经超过了1个亿。我今天早晨7点呢是从这个越南飞回来的，参加这个活动。明天呢要飞印度，因为我们看到在中国、越南、印度。整个 Android 的成长速度很快，所以我的问题就是这个作为 Android 的开发者，我想问 Eric Schmidt， 未来2年，他想跟我们分享一下，希望我们关注 Android 的哪些机会？希望我们不要，或者说这个尽量不要做 Android 平台的哪些？因为这个 Google 会 control 整个 Android 的 ecosystem。
There is concern, obviously, from our Chinese friends about the so-called control of Google, of the Android system. And therefore, advice is being asked from you as to what areas might be the most appropriate areas, if we could use that word, to work on, while other areas, they don't want to waste their energy.
I see.
But maybe you can also look at the questions from the other direction, of course.
I understand the question. I'm not sure I completely understand the right answer here. Android is a huge success. The Android that is in China is the same Android that's used globally. So if you use Android, not only does it work here in China, it also works everywhere. So my simple answer would be to take Android from the global pool and then modify the apps as you need to. And I don't think that that will be a issue. I don't personally think that will be an issue. I'm never sure.
Just that simple. You must have
因为
follow-ups.
主要的问题呢是 Android 的这个生态系统现在在有些碎片化的问题，所以我们也看到 Android 在4.0以后呢，逐渐的有些这个开放的地方开始加强了控制。所以说呢，比如说 Mobile Browser， Google 有这个 Chrome。UC 有 UC Browser， 而且我在 Android 上现在1个月的活跃用户超过了1个亿。某种角度，我们即使合作，可能也有些竞争。他怎么看这个问题？对。
Not only competition, not only cooperation, but also competition about the Android ecosystem. Several examples our friend already raised. So you think this is going to be as fierce as it is today, or even more? What do you advise would be the strategies for developers like theirs?
Because UCWeb as a mobile browser, we have more than 100 million monthly active users in Android platform. So maybe we are partner, maybe we are the competitor. Yeah.
Again, first place, I think you're going to have huge competition on the Android platform. And that competition is good for the Chinese citizen because it will drive prices down and it will serve China extremely well. Because there'll be so many, of course there'll be competitors for the apps as well and competitors for the app stores, but it's capitalism and your product has to get better. What I would say is that it's so competitive that there's even more pressure than there should be to move quickly because it's growing so fast.
Okay, thank you.
Do you think you can be the next competitor?
Safari.
Sorry?
Safari, Apple.
Okay, so
Anyway.
Maybe my last question. My question is regarding about the creative and the copycat. So we have a lot of good ideas in China, and we have a lot of smart guys and smart programmers. But the problem is, as a startup company, we have a very limited resource and money to hire them and build up a good product. But once the product goes into the internet, everybody knows how it works, how the functions.
And then they copy it immediately.
Yeah, and China never lose the money, and China never lose the people. So some big companies, they copy your ideas and copy your programs and public it into the internet, and you lose. So what do you see? It's kind of the kill the babies in China. So what's your
But that's no different from the U.S.
Okay.
It's literally not. The moment a new idea happens anywhere in the world, there are copycats. The way for you to win is to invent the idea and then move it forward. It's easy to make a copy of something. It's much harder to invent version 2 and version 3 and version 4. So the problem with software is you bring out version 1 and it's a good idea. You immediately have to move to version 2 and version 3 to stay ahead of the copycats. And that's been the strategy that's worked very well. And by the way, Google faced all of this as well. And yet we were able to move forward because we had the money and we had the engineers and because we ran fast.
Okay, thank you. Can I have one more question
Of course.
about as a consumer?
Yes,
well,
sir.
it's about the Google products. Because personally, I'm a Google fan. I believe lots of us are Google fans.
Yes, thank you.
The problem is I use my Gmail and use my docs and spreadsheet. I have to use a proxy and
Yes.
connect to Hong Kong somewhere using my email system.
I know.
So, I know it's not a problem for the Google products. When I travel to other countries, it's accessed very fast. But my question is, can we do something personally, like not like a company or between against the government? I think personally, can we do something to make the internet or the Google products more accessible for our consumers?
Before Eric, you answer that question, let me just ask our audience, how many of you are using Gmails? All right, you have to answer that question now, sir.
Gmail is a huge success globally. And Gmail is growing, it's taking share from everywhere. And there must be some reason why the Chinese government makes Gmail slow or unavailable. But it's a mystery to me. to me, Gmail is fantastically useful for Chinese citizens, so as Google Apps and so forth. And if you think about the economic growth of China, you think about the aspirations of the nation, I would think that Gmail would be a net positive, right? It's free, it's fast, right? It's extremely scalable. So from my perspective, I don't want to give you political advice, but I would say that this is a political problem, not a technical problem.
Well, we're just only being given the explanations. We're not being given the solutions.
Well, I am not in charge of the solution.
But do you think there is something that the company can do to make the solution happen?
I have tried.
So do they. They have tried their questions.
Okay.
And
I want to thank you all for your direct. It's typical of China to ask very direct questions, and you're not even done. Have another question. Go ahead.
Okay, like more specific question regarding Google's product. You know, with very wide adoption of Android on the mobile phone
and by the way, also of Chrome. Chrome is a huge.
I just wanted to talk about Chrome.
Oh, good, even better.
And on tablets, and also you have something like competing solution, Chrome OS. So internally in Google, how do you think about these two like competing solutions? Do you think Chrome OS fail to becoming general purpose OS? Will you still invest on Chrome related technology? And what's the strategy and roadmap?
It's a very good question. We are at the moment investing in both Chrome and Android very heavily globally. Android, we've discussed its success. Chrome is now #1 browser in most countries, on its way to being #1 browser here in China, I think. And I think that we will ultimately be #1 everywhere in the world, because the Chrome browser is faster, it's also more secure, and it's free. Excellent attributes. We will continue to focus on Chrome and Chrome OS, and the way it's divided right now is that people are beginning to use Chrome and Chromium, that is Chrome OS, for things with keyboards. And Android is for tablets and phones. Touchscreens. And that seems to be where the technology is taking it. It's important in technology to let the technology take you to where it goes. You shouldn't force things into something that they're not.
Do you think netbook or Surface will be a filtered product category with keyboard, something with keyboard? That's different, right?
Well, we've had very good success with our initial Chromebooks. They are very inexpensive, they're very fast, and what you do is you just turn them on and you're immediately on the internet. And you close it and it forgets everything. It's a complete web top. Since I was at Sun, which was 20 years ago, we have wanted to build that product.
Old days, Java 8.
Remember the Java top?
Yeah.
And I announced those products. They didn't work. But this generation of technology is much better and it works.
See, he has already not only talked about the strategy, but also used the strategy he talked about. Word of mouth, he's already starting it here on the stage.
And I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to sort of talk to these folks and talk to you as well.
We really want to thank all of them for their wonderful questions. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. 我们也给他们鼓鼓掌，真的非常感谢他们，而且可以看得出他们在自己业界有很多的思考。谢谢你们啊。Now we can have more questions for people sitting here. And before we call on you, I would like to invite upstage my friend, Jack. Jack, thank you at the very beginning for introducing both Eric and I. And now it is your time to call on some of friends. You're the insiders here. You must know where the top questions come from. So go ahead.
其实他是把一个沉重的包袱交到我的身上，你们知道为什么？因为我选谁，别的人都会不高兴。那么谁有问题，请大家举手，我们先看一下。我这样公平起见，我们先给这边的人机会，先给这边人的机会。好。
哇，很荣幸第一个问问题。
All right. You need the.
Okay, perfect. 你好， 我感到，我当时2011年5月份的时候，在那个 Google I/O 开发者大会上，我非常激动地看到 Google 提出了 Android at Home 计划，希望用 Android 来切入智能家居。但是1年半过去了，我很好奇这个项目目前的进展怎么样，因为我到现在没有听到任何关于它进展的消息。然后我看到这2年各大厂商和 Kickstarter 这些平台上面，都有很多团队在试图切入智能家居这个领域。那么 Google 在智能家居方面的看法和愿景是怎么样的？
I understand that last May, I was looking at some news coming from Google. Android at Home was an exciting project being promoted then, but now it seems quite quiet. I wonder what's going on, and what do you think about the competitive edge in the future?
So our vision for Android is that Android will be in every consumer device, whether it's at your home or at your work, all the devices that you carry around, mobile devices, televisions, that sort of thing. And so we call that Android Home. We've released some of the first version of that, so for example, music devices and so forth. And you'll see much more in 2013. So Android Home is the next phase of the Android strategy for us, with heavy investment.
The competition possible?
We'll have lots of competitors. The reason we think we will win is our technology is better, and we can link the Android Home to the mobile phone in very powerful ways to solve new consumer problems. There are many people who have parts of the solution for the home, but we think we're the only company that can build a completely integrated solution, or at least the platform for it.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Eric. 我们看给这边的同学一些机会吧。
The
来，我们给
internet
这
community
给这
apparently
边
is
的，
a
给这边
democratic
的。
community here in
好，
China.
这边的，这边的，这儿，哎，这边好。
And I have a question about Google Glass. What does it can do right now except taking pictures and videos? And can I check my email and even reply it? How to do that? And can you give us a release date of it? I mean, not the developer version, for the consumer version. Thank you.
Thank you. We do not have a release date for the consumer version, but the developer release will be soon. And we announced that a while ago at our developer conference. What Google Glass is it's a device that sits above your eye. So you look up and you can see text, you can see a picture, and it also has a camera. So the demonstrations of Google Glass have been a camera that looks what you see. But we don't know what people will do with Google Glass. It's a platform for developers, and it sounds like you'll be one of the first ones. It has one button, so you can say yes or no. It's hard to type on it, but perhaps people will invent text-to-speech and other ways of communicating with it. But it's an open platform, and we're very excited about it.
Okay, thank you. I think we should give this one. Okay, this section. 我们给中间的一个机会，我们这样相对比较平均一点。
艾瑞克，刚才您谈到了，创新需要有一个比较远大的目标。我的问题就是关于谷歌的远景。其实我们知道，2012年谷歌做了很多让人兴奋的事情，一方面是安卓系统大势已成，另外一方面，像谷歌汽车也已经越来越接近商业化运营。我相信这肯定对谷歌来说是万里长征的第一步。您认为2013年会是谷歌迈向一个新台阶的一个关键一年吗？在这一年里面，谷歌希望怎么去整合从搜索到谷歌眼镜，甚至到谷歌汽车这些看起来好像不太相关的这些业务？我相信他们背后一定是有联系的。谢谢。
Sounds like an investor of Google. What do you want to say about what Google has achieved in 2012, and also 2012, of course, the Android system, the Google cars, and many other things. What about 2013? Any new plans?
We have many, which we don't announce. What I'll tell you is we have more products and more innovation each year, and therefore 2013 will be an even better year. We never know if one product will be the breakthrough. We think it might, but we never know. And we test and we find out. But I couldn't tell you which of the many products will become the most famous, but I know that there will be a few, because we'll find out. And we're open to letting that happen. That's part of our secret.
How long would you allow that test period to go on, usually?
We typically will test for 6 to 12 months. And there have been a number of projects where we've given them 18 months. And then if they're just not working, you try everything and then you go ahead and cancel and try something different.
Who has the final say?
Ultimately, the executives in the company. The typical final decision maker in the company is Larry Page, who is, by the way, the CEO.
好，我们给这边站在远处的同学们一些机会吧。来，给他远方，他们坐的那么远，给他们一些机会。
Hello Eric， 你好，欢迎来到中国。我还是用中文问吧，为大家的好。是这样，就是最近的5年甚至10年，然后呢，发生了各种各样的变革，也有很多新的产品、新的服务诞生。那现在互联网的状况和以前已经发生了翻天覆地的变化。信息呢也呈这种爆炸的态势增长，而且速度越来越快。那我就想知道，就是说，当我们人的精力和那个关注度都有限的情况下，我们如何能够快速地获取到自己想要的信息？以前 Google 的搜索解决了这个问题，那么在未来的5到10年当中，Google 会有什么杀手锏或者新的技术变革来解决这些问题吗？同时呢，我们也是一个小的开发团队，那我也很想知道，就是对于一个小团队来说，我们能够在哪些领域或者哪些方式做出自己的贡献在这方面，而又避免跟很大公司或者这种像 Google 这样成功的公司去直接竞争，而我们选择一个小的方向，能够让我们自己有自己的空间。谢谢。
Well, obviously another investor into Google, but this time 5 or 10 years from now. Thank you very much.
I think I understood the question.